Hey there, this is Andrew Olsen with Dickerson Baker. Let's talk a little bit today about some of the things that are costing you impact as an organization. And this is particularly for my friends who are in the nonprofit sector. So whether you lead a nonprofit or you lead a revenue team in a nonprofit organization, these things are particularly for you. First is not focusing on net revenue. It's much easier to focus on gross revenue. In fact, a lot of nonprofits tell us that it's the one metric they actually track. But net is what you can spend on mission. And so if you're not focusing on net, you're likely going to have a problem. The next one is not accounting for your team's time, particularly when you look at things like return on investment in an event or some sort of activity that you're spending team time on. Not factoring the cost of that time and the opportunity cost of the other things they could be doing with that time is going to cause you to lose a lot. Spending more time and dollars to bring in new supporters, but then not spending enough time and dollars to keep the ones you already have or to keep those new ones around. So this is why I think the investment in retention and engagement is so critical today. It's so much more exciting to chase after new things. Like our brains are wired that way. But the revenue and the net impact is most significant with donors that already support us. In fact, it's those people who've been around for multiple years, who've shown loyalty. That's where the real net is. But if you chase new versus chasing the cultivating of existing and longtime loyal partners, that's where you're going to end up losing a lot of money. The next one is simply not investing in major gifts. There are so many organizations today that are either afraid to invest in major gifts, or they're concerned that it's a significant lift or it's going to be really expensive to do. And the reality is almost all of the net revenue increase in most organizations for the last 5 years has come from the top 2 to 3% of donors in their organizations. And so if you're not focused on investing in major gifts, you're going to leave a lot of revenue on the table. The next is thinking that the transaction's the goal. For most organizations, the focus is the transaction, whether they want to admit it or not. But the transaction is just an outcome of the relationship. And so if we chase the transaction, what we're essentially saying to the donors is relationship with you doesn't matter. It's all about just turning that dial and keep continuing to get a gift, right? When in reality, it's the relationship that's going to make so much more meaning for the organization. The next is prioritizing efficiency in your fundraising over effective relationship fundraising and net revenue. Efficiency, so return on investment, right? We need to get a 3-to-1 return on investment, a 5-to-1 return on investment, a 7-to-1 return on investment. You can manipulate that statistic by changing a couple of different things, right? And oftentimes what happens is when an organization pushes for higher return on investment, they actually generate less total net revenue because it's almost impossible to maximize net revenue while also maximizing return on investment. And so if return is the goal, then everything else is going to be subservient, and you're actually going to end up at the end of the day with less dollars to spend on your mission. The next thing I would say is one of the things that really costs organizations is chasing sort of every new and unique thing, right? So the Ice Bucket Challenge a couple of years ago, a new whiz-bang app, building your own app as an organization instead of just leveraging what technologists have built elsewhere. The next new platform, the next corporate fundraising challenge, the Honda challenge, the Pepsi challenge, whatever it might be, all of those sort of things that might generate a little bit of revenue and a little bit of brand awareness for you, but they really benefit somebody else and they don't make the same kind of impact. This goes back to valuing time on your team and making sure that you understand that when they do those things and they chase those activities, the $3,000 or the $5,000, even the $20,000 that you get might come at the cost of not getting a $50,000 or $100,000 or $1 million gift by investing in relationship with the donors that love you, right? Also, believing that you are the central figure in your fundraising communications, that costs so many organizations so much money because at the end of the day, donors want to know that they make an impact and that you value them. And so if your communication talks about how important you are versus talking about how important they are, you're going to lose a lot of donors and they're never going to give to you in transformational ways. And I think the last one that I would say is thinking that your donors owe you anything, right? I'm so tired of hearing organizations and quote unquote leaders in the space talk about how the donors should just shush and give, and they should stop asking for reports, they should stop asking to be thanked, they should stop asking for credibility information, they just need to give. That is the most ungracious, ungrateful, arrogant perspective I've ever heard. And the people that make that case, I honestly, candidly, I think they should be fired, because donors don't owe us anything, right? We actually have to earn it every day. And if you don't like that, like if that bothers you, maybe you're doing the wrong kind of work. Um, but the donors generated this revenue. They made this money, and we can have all sorts of economic conversations about this. But at the end of the day, the donors have the funds. They're generous. They want to make an impact, but they want to partner with someone that makes it feel good to partner with, right? So if you make it painful for them, if you're arrogant, if you're constantly telling your donors why you think they're bad people and that, they made their wealth by stealing from the community and all these sorts of things that you might believe, you're not going to end up engaging a lot of donors. You might get a few who believe that, but that's a very small percentage of the overall donor population in the country, and you're never going to grow if your focus is berating your supporters.